So, ready to dive into the world of oil painting and find your own style?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
We're taking a look at this art news on Irish Art Mart blog post, Finding Your Style, How to Develop as an Oil Painter. It's got some really interesting points, and hopefully we can help you unlock some of those secrets to finding your own artistic voice.
It's a journey, that's for sure. And it's so easy, I think, especially starting out, to get really caught up in, learning the techniques and trying to replicate what you see.
Right, like just trying to make it look like a photograph.
Exactly. But having a distinct style, even as a beginner, is what will really make your art stand out. It's about expressing your own unique vision.
I love that. It's like, how do you see the world? Not how does a camera see the world?
Exactly.
So the article starts with some basics, but instead of just being like, go buy some paint,
Yeah.
it jumps into some really cool techniques. One that caught my eye was impasto. Have you ever played around with that?
Oh, yeah. Impasto is so much fun.
Yeah.
It's all about applying those thick layers of paint, to create texture and depth.
Okay.
Think of Van Gogh's Starry Night.
Oh, yeah.
Those brushstrokes, almost three-dimensional. That's impasto.
It adds like an emotion to it almost, right?
Exactly. So much emotion and movement that you can get just from the way you apply the paint.
So it's not just what you paint, it's how you're actually putting it on there.
Exactly.
And speaking of different ways to apply the paint, they also talk about glazing, which I've always been intrigued by.
Glazing is really cool. It's more about layering. You're applying these thin, translucent layers of oil paint, almost like you're building up a watercolor, but in oils.
Yeah.
And that creates this incredible depth and luminosity.
It's like those layers of light.
Exactly.
I love that. So we're already seeing there's so many different approaches. And then, of course, the article talks about all the different styles of art. Realism, impressionism, abstract.
Mhm.
There's something for everyone.
Absolutely. And that's really where finding your style comes in. It's about figuring out which one of these really speaks to you, which one resonates with your artistic vision.
It's like you could spend a lifetime just exploring all the different ways to use oils.
Absolutely. It's such a versatile medium.
And speaking of exploring, one thing that I think can be intimidating, I know it is for me, is developing your own color palettes. Like, where do you even begin?
Oh, I totally get that. Color can be so powerful, but also overwhelming, especially with oils where the possibilities are pretty much endless.
Right. It's like, how do you choose? The article mentions the color wheel, which of course is kind of a classic tool. Do you find yourself actually going back to the color wheel very often in your work?
The color wheel is funny. It's like this old friend, I don't always need to hang out with them, but they taught me so much.
Yeah.
Like, I don't always have a physical color wheel out when I'm painting, but understanding the relationships between colors, those principles are always there in the back of my mind.
It's like that foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it really helps, especially when you're trying to evoke a certain mood or a feeling in a painting.
So it's not just about, oh, this color looks pretty next to this one. It's like, what feeling am I trying to get across?
Exactly.
That's so cool. And, the article also talks about this idea of keeping a sketchbook, and not even necessarily just for sketching out ideas, but as a way to kind of play with color combinations.
Oh, for sure. It's like your own little color laboratory.
Yes.
And, it's funny you mentioned that because it made me think about the article's point about documenting your progress, which I think is so important.
Oh, tell me more about that.
It's easy to get caught up in the moment, right?
Yeah.
But taking the time to look back at your older work, seeing how your use of color has changed or developed over time, it's like, wow, look how far I've come.
You can actually see that progress.
Exactly. And sometimes you might even surprise yourself. You might stumble across an old color combination that you totally forgot about, and it sparks a whole new idea.
I love that because it's so true. You can get stuck in a rut and then you see something you did like 2 years ago and you're like, oh, that was kind of cool. I want to try that again.
Exactly. It's like this treasured trove of inspiration from your past self.
It's so funny you say that because I'm the same way with my closet. But with art, there's also this element of risk, right? Like, are you going to ruin it by trying something new? And the article talks about embracing mistakes, which I think is huge, especially when we're talking about finding your own style. Because if you're too afraid to make a mistake, you're never going to try anything new.
That's so true. Mistakes are just opportunities to learn something new.
Exactly.
And honestly, some of the most interesting discoveries happen when you're not afraid to experiment, even if it means messing up a little bit along the way.
Yeah, like that happy accident.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's usually where the magic happens.
Yes. And, it made me think about another thing they talked about in the article, which is finding your voice through a series of paintings. Have you found that to be true, that working in a series can help you kind of hone in on your style?
A series is like a deep dive into one specific idea or theme. It's not just about creating a bunch of standalone paintings. It's about building a cohesive body of work that tells a story.
That's a really cool way to think about it.
And that story, it becomes a reflection of your unique perspective, your style. It's like, this is how I see the world through these paintings.
Yeah, it's like each painting is a chapter.
Exactly.
And within that series, you can really start to see those common threads, those things that make your work uniquely yours.
Absolutely. It's like you're developing your own visual language.
I love that. Now, speaking of getting feedback on that language, that visual language, the article also mentions seeking feedback, which I'm always curious about. Like, how do you balance being open to feedback while also staying true to your vision, especially when you're still kind of figuring things out?
It's a tricky one, right?
Hmm.
Because feedback can be so valuable, but it's also easy to get pulled in a million different directions, especially early on.
Yeah, like you don't want to lose yourself in trying to please everybody.
Exactly. So I think it's about being really selective about who you ask for feedback and really listening for the feedback that truly resonates with you.
So it's about finding those people whose opinions you trust.
Yes. People who get your vision, even if it's still a work in progress,
Yeah.
and who can offer constructive criticism that helps you grow. Not just saying, oh, that's pretty.
Yeah, like this is good, but
Exactly. Have you thought about this?
give me those suggestions, yeah.
And at the end of the day, the most important voice to listen to is your own.
Your gut.
Trust your instincts. If something feels right to you, if it excites you, keep exploring it. Even if others don't quite get it yet.
Because that's how you find your voice.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, that's so inspiring. It's a good reminder that finding your style, especially in oil painting, it's not just about like the technical skill, it's so much more than that.
It's about expressing yourself authentically.
Yes. And that's what makes art so powerful,
Yeah.
right? It's that human connection.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been incredible. I feel so inspired to go and make a mess with some oil paint. Thank you so much for this deep dive. It's been enlightening. And for all of you listening, remember, there's no right or wrong way to find your style. Just grab a brush and have fun. That's the most important part.